This is Derek from Future Vision and Growth Network. So it's Thursday. It's Thursday afternoon. So today I do my long format. And this is my long format where I tackle a topic and we kind of talk about it. And I bring in different things, talk about my week a little bit. And we just really look at what's happening. And so my topic today is about change because I think it's something that I've had to deal with and that a lot of people have to deal with. And so I want to see kind of like where we're at. The title is We Need to Change, or Change Can Be Scary. So let's get started. Okay. When I look at change, I look at things in a lot of different ways, but I guess I should probably start with my own background when it comes to change. I am not always the greatest at change. I'll be really honest. I said I get stifled, I get scared, I have a hard time sometimes when things don't go exactly the way I have them planned. I very much like to have control of my situation. So I've had to learn a lot in my life that that's not always the case and that's not always the plan. And sometimes I need to try something new and try something different. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. When I was young, my parents, my mom was a homemaker. My mom stayed home and took care of us. And my dad was a siding contractor. My dad worked out of town. And there's a legacy of siding contracting in my family. So my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, they all did it. And so it's always been a big thing. I would work there in the summertime in the Altus area. If you're from Altus, shout out. But I worked in the sun, I worked outside, and I was like, this is not a career that I want. Like, this is not my jam. I love that they do it, but it was a lot of work. And so I thought, this is very different. And so I was I was scared a little bit. But ultimately, it was in my family, and the thought was that I would take over my grandfather's business because my mom and my grandfather were in business together. So they had a company. Well, when my grandfather retired, the thought was, oh, well, then you'll take over the siding business. I'll take over the Alpha Siding and awning business. And so that was the thought. And at that point, my grades in school were not fantastic. I had very average grades. I had B's and C's, and they were kind of like, well, I don't know about this one. And so they were planning. Their plan for me was that I was going to go to a tech school, get some business experience, and maybe a certificate, and I was going to come out, and I was going to go ahead and take over the siding business, take over the family business, and work construction, and that was going to be my life. I shocked the hell out of them real quick. Why? Because my 10th grade year, because our high school was 10th, 11th, and 12th, I started taking pre-AP classes. And that was the first time that people started mentioning college to me. And I was like, I never thought about it. Like, I had never been the kid that was in the track. I wasn't gifted and talented. I wasn't from a well-off family. I didn't have a person around me that had been to college, so I had no experience. So I was like a first gen on my dad's side, and my mom's side, it was so far removed from me that we didn't have that either. So it was actually like 2 generations back where they were college people on my mom's side. So I didn't have it around me. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, people kept saying, well, you're going to go to college because, you know, you're in pre-AP classes and you're in band, you're doing things. And I thought, well, that sounds like a plan. What does that mean? So then I had to start looking at it and build my way through. And I was like, you know, that's fascinating. How do we do that? Well, I will tell you, I have a little backstory that goes with that. And that is that my mom was illiterate. My mom did not learn how to read until she was 22 years old. So she pushed us to read, and she pushed us to read when we were very young, and I didn't know why. I had no idea until much later in my life when that was actually brought to my attention, and my dad helped her learn how to read. And so she was like, education's very, very important. And that was like, oh, it was great for me to hear that, but it also was a role model for me, but I didn't keep pushing myself. So being from Altus, the college was near and dear to my heart because Western Oklahoma State College is down there. It's a community college, 2-year school, and I used to swim there. I used to be a competitive swimmer in the swim club there, so I thought I'll go here. But then again, we were like, we don't know how to pay for it. Like, that was the thing, is like, where's the money going to come from for us to pay tuition? And how's that going to happen? Well, if you knew back in the day, when you did coupons, you would take coupons and you could send in a code and fill out this little like application kind of, and they would give you a $1 like credit back. They give you like a $1 back for a product that you bought. Well, my mom did that over the years, and she just was really into it. And I was like, okay, we went grocery shopping. It would take us hours, but yeah, she was really into it. So she literally got $1 and $2 checks back and paid for my first semester of college, which was about $2,000, using refunding checks to get me to go. And again, she didn't know. And when I went to tell them I was going to college, their jaw dropped and like, oh, because my sister was the one that was the straight A student. My sister was the one that had created the poetry corner. My sister was the one that learned how to read when she was in first grade. Or in kindergarten. It was all these things that happened, but I wasn't that person. So when I was saying it's my turn, I want to go do that, my mom was shocked. So I thought, so that put our family into a change, because they were like, they thought, oh, he's gonna take over the family business. So then I go to college, and I really find myself, because again, before that, shy, introvert, didn't want to talk. And I was like, ooh, I was very scared. Waited tables at Golden Corral for several years. And then I ended up going to college. Well, let's see. If you ever have waited tables, you know you don't make money if you don't talk. And so at that point, I started talking because I was going to make some cash. And then also, I went to college where people started to say, hey, what do you think? Well, then I started to speak, and I have not shut up since. I will tell you that right now. And so it has been an experience for me to go through that transition, and I've been in college essentially ever since. I have worked, let me give you a little of my background real quick. I graduated from Western Oklahoma State College in 1997. I then transferred to Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford. I was a SWOSU Bulldog and loved it. Had a great time in Weatherford, Oklahoma. After that, I came to Oklahoma City because it was election season. Thought I was going to go to Washington, D.C. That did not occur. That was another change in my life. So I ended up coming to Oklahoma City, worked at Barnes & Noble for about 6 years, and thought I better do something about this. And then in 2009, I started, 2007, I started my master's program at the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond. My sister had gone through a program. It was in adult education and training and development. And I was like, well, she seemed to like it. So I said, let me check it out. So I went and checked it out, and I went in that program. So I graduated in 2009 with my master's degree in adult education and training, and that was fantastic. And then I'm like, what do I do with it? So in 2010, I thought, you know what, maybe I should teach. Everybody said you should teach, and I thought, I was scared. I'm like, I'm not getting in the classroom. That's scary. But I was like, maybe I should try it. And so I decided, okay, first class, I'm going in, and y'all feel sorry for my first students. Well, because when I went in, I knew I had two options. I was either going to be the really easy professor, or I was going to be the really hard professor. And I thought, if I'm the really easy professor, I'm never going to get it back. So I thought, you know what, I'll do the other one. So I went in, and that first semester, those poor babies in 2010, I gave them homework every day. I made them like research and take tests, and they have big projects. By the end, my reviews on Rate Your Professor, the kid was not lying. The kid was like, I thought this was going to be a blow-off class. This is so hard. I had one kid say that he had crazy eyebrows, which at the time I didn't realize it. And that I was extremely hard, and I stared too much. That is what was my Rate My Professor semester 1. And I thought, maybe I picked the wrong career. Ultimately, I did not, because I did that for the next 10 years at that university. I was a first-year experienced person there. I taught Success Central, Success Strategy. Success Central was DOE-eyed freshmen, first time coming through, learning how to become adults and giving them the tools they needed to graduate. And then at Success Strat, where it was students in remediation that needed a little bit of extra help so that I could show them their potential and show them what an amazing human being they were, and that we needed to shed all of the labels that had been put on them and shed everything that had said, this is who you are and this is what you're going to do, and break those boundaries and say, you know what, I've got greater aspirations for you. Let's go ahead and work together, and I'm going to make that happen. And it did, for over 3,000 students going through the University of Central Oklahoma. And I love that program. I love doing that. I love the people I worked with, and I adore my students. To this day, I've watched what they've done, and they have thrived and done an incredible job. Talk about change agents. To watch those students out there, that not only in the United States, but globally, go out and do what they're doing. It is absolutely phenomenal. I could not be who I am without those students. Well, also, I decided I'm going to work at another campus, and I started working at Rose State College. Rose State was kind of a way of me kind of coming home. Why? Because it's a 2-year school. It's in the eastern part of Oklahoma City, and I really enjoyed working there as well. I did it. There's several iterations of it, but ultimately it was a first-year course as well. The last name for it was College and Life Strategies. And it was a similar program. I got students that were there. We got to go ahead and they would come in, and that is an open access school. The open access meaning you didn't have to have a GPA requirement. You didn't have to have a diploma, but you could try and go to school there. And so we got to help students, encourage them. I got to meet them and show them what their potential is and create amazing human beings. And you know what? I've got to watch those students go on to universities and go on to higher degrees and go on to get their PhD and become doctors and go on to their careers, or leave that school and go do what they want to do, create businesses, and they're musicians and they're artists and they're just phenomenal human beings. So I am honored, and I will always be honored to teach at that school. And then a new opportunity arose. After 2020, I'm like, what do I do? Went to work at UPS for about 3 months. I will tell you this, the hardest people that ever worked in the world work in one place, and that is a fulfillment center for either UPS, FedEx, Amazon, anybody that's in those warehouses out there. I see you, and I can tell you this, no one works harder than they do. So if you don't know, they work very, very hard. They work at night, and they make sure everything runs like it's supposed to for the drivers to get those to your doorsteps. Those drivers are not loading those trucks, and it is very, very different to see that. So just know your package getting there, the reason it's getting there is because of all the people in the background in those fulfillment centers and in those warehouses that have gotten those millions of packages to you. I learned a lot at that point and said, I better find something to do. I really love to be in a classroom. And then an opportunity came to me for Oklahoma City Community College. And that is, I have had the opportunity to work and teach GED courses for students for the last 2 years. I believe it's been the last 2 years. This was a little different in that I was going to be teaching reading, writing, and social studies, because they said math and science, and I laughed and I said, I don't think so. I think you guys are smart. And I said, I don't think you want me teaching you math and science. And so those 3 subjects, I started teaching that. I taught one class at Faith Center, which is north of the main campus, and then I have since Cleveland County is my territory. So if you are in the Norman area or the Noble area, or even if more want to drive down and take a class from me, we do enrollment on a regular basis. I would encourage you to do that. If you know anybody that needs to get their GED, I can tell you this right now, my students graduate, and they graduate quickly. And so that is one of the things that is really cool about that, and I'm really good at it. And I have a good time. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy teaching you about all the different things in building community, and I think that's super important in the classroom. And so we are doing that at Noble High School, and then at nighttime, Monday and Wednesday, and then during Tuesday and Thursday morning, I'm at Haystack Coffee Company, and that is at Baptist College Ministries on the OU campus. So interestingly enough, I'm at OU teaching for OCCC, students that are just getting started. And I love that because we get to bring them on campus and remind them what their goals are. I forgot part of my story, and that is in 2014, actually 2006, I started another program. I started a PSC for program, which is like public service program. It was more public admin and stuff like that at OU. And so when I went to OU and that first time, I went and took some classes. I didn't get high enough scores, and I thought they threw me out. And I was like, huh. So that was fascinating. So then I left. I left there at that point, and then I decided I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna do. And then I was at UCO, and I was at Rose State, and I was teaching. And then in 2014, I decided to try and take a plunge. And that is, I was like, I want to go get my PhD. And so I started my PhD courses. And to talk about changes and challenges, I will tell you this right now. The University of Oklahoma at that point was going through a lot. It was going through a lot of changes. It was going through identity changes. It was going through a whole bunch of things. But my colleagues and I decided to start taking classes, and we did. And I will tell you, I am eternally grateful for all of the professors that I got the opportunity to learn under while they were there. And I said, it is amazing. I did all of my coursework. I am essentially done with all my coursework. I've done everything, all the requirements. I have 93 graduate hours at the University of Oklahoma. The only thing I have not done is I have not finished my general exam, and I have not defended. And that is the part that still sticks with me. And I wanted to put this out there so that you know that I have been through some challenges in that space. And guess what? It's not done yet. I said, notice I don't have my degree yet. I didn't say I'm never going to. I don't have it yet. It's something that's very important to me, and I need to get back on that because I want to be Dr. Jensen. My wife is currently in her PhD program, and ultimately, I'm like, I would love to have both of us have doctor in front of our name. So challenges happen. I have been through a lot. I have been through a whole bunch of things. And so I look at things and I go, I have students that come to me and they've been through a lot. They either have their new parents. Some are not new parents. Some are grandparents. Some are people that are going through challenging situations. It could be a returning soldier that has just come back from a war zone. That is a unique experience to have a soldier come back from a war zone, be put into a college campus, and say, here you go, I need you to listen to 20-year-olds complain about whatever they are complaining about when you just left Fallujah. That is a very different thing to deal with. And so you have to work with students. You have to build a rapport with students. You have to know how to handle and how to work with and students that come from all over and are doing different things. So change is inevitable. Change is something we cannot stop. People want to. We would love to control it. We would love to say, you know what? I don't want that change. One of the biggest changes, and the one that I will always talk about probably, and our kids will, and you will, and everyone will, the pandemic changed everything. And that is a very, very broad statement and a bold statement, but it is not an untrue statement. And that is, we all collectively went through a unique trauma experience. And when we did that, it either exacerbated things, it clarified things, or it created things to happen. And so we're in all of those things. So at this point, we are, 2024, so 4 years after the pandemic. And so ultimately, we are in a different space. It still has affected us. We're still affected. If you don't believe it, I said, why? Some people are still traveling around Europe and living their best life because they figured out something. They said, you know what? I'm not going to wait to do that. I'm going to live my life now because you never know when your life is going to be done. And you may as well enjoy your experience while you're here. And that is fantastic. That has changed things. We still have some of the ramifications of the economics of that. Because when we were all done and lockdown didn't have anything, when they said, guess what, go shopping, we did. We really did. We went shopping for everything. We wanted everything. We bought everything. We traveled everywhere. We just went in and said, I'm going to go shopping. And we did. The economy shows it. It went through, people talk about how the numbers are high right now. They absolutely are. Why? Because at the time 2020 was happening, which you all have seen this, the meme that out there that said, gas was $1.49 4 years ago. It was because we're in the middle of a pandemic. No one was doing anything. No one was going anywhere. No one needed gas. I mean, that was it. It was like, so it was a little bit of a fallacy out there. Um, so now it's high. We have, I mean, 252, not as bad as it was. But ultimately, when gas is high, it's because people are out there moving and they can afford to pay for it. I mean, that's weird. Inflation, why do we have inflation? Because we are buying so much of whatever that thing is that they can afford to raise the price and we haven't stopped buying it. So ultimately, supply and demand says we're going to buy it. So there we go. I mean, that is really where it's at. And so, but change, now let's talk change in the like city sense or in the government sense. When we talk about change in leadership and change in, I'm not going to talk parties affiliation, but I will talk about overall change. We're talking about changing of leadership or changing cities changing and culture changing and things like that. It can have very real effects. So let me explain why I'm saying that. I live in Norman, Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma is going through a major change right now. And that is, we are going from being a small town, being rural, if you will call it that. Not really, but kind of. We had a university, very much hippie driven. We have great musicians, great art, and all of that. And we're seeing an influx of people. So we have a lot of people coming to our city, whether it is the students, because we're now in this Southeast Conference. So we have a lot coming here for that. We're just growing. Oklahoma City is the 20th largest city in the country and growing rapidly. Well, when you have a big city near you that grows rapidly, people want to move. They don't want to be in that city, so then they move to the outer cities or they move to the suburbs. Well, Norman is a great place to live. We have incredible schools, we have phenomenal art, phenomenal music, great food, a great university. I mean, we have all the things that you would want in a city. So people are moving here, which is a great problem to have. But the hard part is we're growing rapidly. Like we're growing really rapidly. I looked it up and I believe we grew 14% since 2010. That's a chunk of people. And so, and I know that our city has aspirations. I know that there's major changes coming and we're watching it in real time. And there's people that don't want it to. There's people that don't want it to change. And it's not that I think it's just fear. I think people are scared because they've known Norman a certain way. Norman has been this way. This is how we grew up here. We used to live in this part of town and then it became really full. So then we moved to this part of town, and then it became really full. Then we moved to this part of town and then it became really full. Pretty soon we're living in Little Axe. I mean, it's like we're moving so far out that we're like, you don't know where you're going to move to get away from this particular city. And so you're like, huh. So you're starting to see that. And it's a lot. It is a lot. Our city is known for its nonprofits. We have over 250 nonprofits in Norman, and that's a whole lot more than that probably at this point. So social services are a huge deal here, whether it is mental health services, whether it is art, music, and I mean our art council is phenomenal. We have music classes. We have all the things that you would see in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but not quite as much foundations. But we do have Sarkeys, and Sarkeys is a huge vendor here, and we love the foundation. They're incredible. We have the Norman Public Schools Foundation. We have all kinds of people here that do great work. They do such good work that we have people that come here for that as well. If you haven't checked out CCFI and some of the other nonprofits, they are incredible. Food and Shelter has been incredible and worked with our unhoused population. We have so many things here, so much happening, but our city's growing fast. And so when it's growing that fast, we are having a strain on our city because when you grow quickly, you've got to build what people need, and we can't build it fast enough. And that's where we're at. So we're having to really build quickly. We're having to grow quickly. And then we're also trying to analyze it because, we're researchers and educated, and we got the University of Oklahoma. So we have all these people here. They're like, well, hold on. Don't jump into it. Let us research it, which is great. I love my researchers, but you know what? It takes a while to research all this stuff, and then I have to talk about it, and then I have to talk about it again, talk about it again, and talk about it again, till finally I'm like, are we done talking? And then we create a plan. So then we literally have taken a year and a half to create a plan, and we're still creating a plan. We're gonna have a plan eventually, and then hopefully that plan will last for a little bit. And then we're gonna have to execute the plan. So then to see what my city will become is phenomenal. The name of my channel is Future Growth and Vision Network. So you can tell that I'm not probably going to go back and be looking in the past too much. I will for reference. I will to honor the past and honor our history and all of that. But I'm not going to be the one that goes back and says, I'd like to go backwards. I'd like to, throw all the new stuff out. Let's get the old stuff out. I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not where I'm at. I have a group of people in Norman, Oklahoma that are having a really hard time. And I didn't honor that or give it its true understanding until I watched a meeting the other day where they were talking to one of our planners, because we're doing, a new plan for the next 20 years. And they were having a conversation and they said, we feel squeezed. And I was like, huh. So I started to think about what was going on. And I'll give you a little bit of background so you guys understand it. And that is, we have a turnpike coming in. And this turnpike is going to be here in the next 2 years. That turnpike is either going to go on 80th. I think I saw 80th was my last one. I think that was the last one that I saw going across. I said within 80th to 60th, I don't know where they're going to put the thing because they have to go around a lake watershed, but they're going to put it in one of those places, and it's coming. And there's people that have tried to stop it. There's people that have tried to shut it down, and the state simply came in and the Supreme Court said no. And so they're building it, and so and we're losing homes. We're losing up to 600 homes. And that is devastating, and it's I cannot imagine if I had a place that I had in my family for generations, what that would feel like. I don't know. It's because the one that I have here, I haven't had that long, and it's just a different experience, and so I just cannot imagine that. So they're feeling that from the north. They're also feeling the fact that, Norman is growing east, and Norman is growing east. I said, why? Because east is a space that Norman can grow. If we go west, we're going to hit a boundary and we're going to end up in Oklahoma City. That's not going to do us any good. If we go north, we're going to hit Moore, which, by the way, Moore is about to be landlocked. Why? Because Moore cannot grow outside of its boundaries because Norman's to the south, Oklahoma City is to the north, east, and west, all the way around it. So Moore will be landlocked. There will be nothing else Moore can do. So they're going to move somewhere, and guess what? They're going to probably come to Norman. Well, we're not the only part of our area that is growing. Noble, Oklahoma is also growing. Noble is south of us, about 5 minutes. And they are starting to grow on their eastern flank in Noble. And south of them, they're building a brand new 4-lane highway because the turnpike's going to go just south of them. So ultimately what's going to happen is they're going to get off on probably 77 in Noble and Highway 9 out east in Norman. And so I think those are the exits that I've seen because they took some exits out because there was a disagreement between the city and the Turnpike Authority. So they decided that they were going to take that out. So they're feeling squeezed, right? So you got the south is starting to grow up and more people are moving there. You've got the north, where Norman itself is just growing, but there's going to be a block. So we're starting to move east. And back in the day, it was rural. It still is considered rural. Now, to understand what we mean by rural, they don't have 70-acre properties out there. They have a lot of them 10-acre properties because the rule was anything east of 48, you could have a 10-acre property. And it would be rural. They would keep it that way. What they didn't think about was what happens when someone sells one of those 10-acre properties and what happens when there's development that's coming that way. because it's coming that way. And so ultimately what happens? I mean, they want 48 to be the boundary, and the city's writing the 48 to be the boundary. And so what happens? So then we look at, well, what do we do as a city? Because, we want to keep it as close to we don't want to build a bunch of stuff out there anyways. We don't want to put a whole bunch of sewer and all that, because that takes a lot. That takes a lot of resources. It's expensive and all that. So if we can infill, if we can do things within the boundaries of our city, then we don't have to build out. But if we don't build out, then we're building up. So then the city also looks different again. And I did a video all about this, and I'll have to link it or put it in here so you guys can see it. But ultimately, it's going to look different. We know that we're going to need roughly 25,000 units in the next, 20 years? I believe it's 20 years. And that's based on a very gradual growth projection. That's a lot. That is a lot. And so I believe the gentleman stated that we were going to need 41 apartment complexes that would have 300 people each. Where are we going to put them? Right? So those are the questions that we're looking at. It is going to be an amazing growth opportunity, but we have to figure out where we're going to put everybody. Then we're going to also need more services, because we're going to have more people, so they're going to need more things to do, places to eat, more. And in Oklahoma, in case you don't know, let's say you're not from here, you guys are from somewhere else. Let me tell you, we run on sales taxes. Our cities don't run if they don't make sales taxes. We don't use property tax here. And so that is very unique, because we rely on sales tax. If we don't get a lot of sales taxes coming in, we can't run our cities. Our cities go bankrupt. So you're always chasing sales tax. You're chasing new businesses. You're chasing large businesses. You're trying to create as much sales tax as you can so that you can function as a city. That's great. Small businesses are fantastic. Why? As long as they keep churning away and making money, because we need the sales tax. But then we go after large businesses, so we have to do that too. And it's like, so it is a weird situation here in Oklahoma that I don't love. I said, I wish we could do a mix. And I realized that might raise my property taxes, but we have very, very low property taxes. We will complain, but then we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. All I gotta do is look at Texas or my home state of Minnesota and look at their property taxes, and then they will laugh at you. Because ultimately, it is a very, very low tax state. So to come move here and put a business here, very low taxes. You will really like it. But so my city is going through a change. My city is going through a transition. We are all trying to identify who we are. We're looking at large scale projects. What we bring large scale projects in, that means we're bringing new people in. And when we bring new people in, we change the face of our city. Our city is not the hippie city that it used to be. Our city's maybe not the artistic city. It is, but it has a different feel to it. And so my city's afraid. My city's afraid. They're excited. They're afraid. They're all the things. And so how do you get past it? What do you do next? I think we have to honor the fact that we are going through this change together. And that, it is scary. And that you may be scared. I said, but we will be there with you. We will walk hand in hand with you. And we will do what we need to do to help you and be with you. Because that is what it's going to take. It's going to take community. It's going to take the fact that we're going to be a large city that is going to have to feel like a community. And that's not easy. It's not easy. We are the third largest city in the state of Oklahoma. And we are, again, growing rapidly. So we will be adding new people in. And we get students that come in every year, and they're here for 4 years or a little bit longer, some of them, and then they move on. We keep some of them, and then they move on. We keep some of them, and then they move on. So we have some that stick around and some that leave. But I think that's a part of who we are. Summertime, it's all the people that live here. It's a fantastic time to come and visit. Why? Because you get to see what Norman is like when it doesn't have students here. You have summer classes, but not that many come for summer. So it's just a fascinating thing. I look at change now as part of my life. I want it to be. Because I'm like, it doesn't keep me stagnant. I'm never bored. I get to do new things. I like coffee. I got my Beanstalk coffee. I love coffee shops. I love working with my coffee shop owners. I like to try new ones, but I like the ones I like. And I'm like, so I will try something new. Why? Because that's change oriented. But I also will go back to the things I love and I know and the people I love and know. And I want to go and do that because I want to support them too. So I get to keep grounded and change too. I also am a gardener. Well, let me tell you, if you want to be humbled and honored and let change just smack in the face left and right, be a gardener in Oklahoma. Be a farmer in Oklahoma, y'all. If they hug a farmer because they need it. It is wild to have crops. And I go out there and I see what it's doing. Sometimes I'm like, that thing is never gonna, it's just like sitting there, a bunch of leaves. And all of a sudden I've got 4 bell peppers on my pepper plants. It is like September. They've been out there all summer long, nothing. And all of a sudden I get 4 of them. Well, they decided the fall was their time to shine. And I thought, I didn't control that. I didn't control that. My tomato plants that are out there, those are volunteers. They showed up in a garden bed and all of a sudden they grew. And I just said, you know what? Since you have put the effort in as a little plant to grow right there, I'm just going to move you into some soil that might be nicer for you. So I took the plants out, put 4 of them in a bed out there, and I have been harvesting tomatoes all summer long. And those are the best tomatoes, and they are so good, and they are so strong, and they have created their own space, and they have made their own way. And I'm like, I've kept seeds from these tomatoes because I'm like, if you're willing to be that strong, I'm willing to keep planting you. And I'm like, I feel like if you want to fight, I will fight with you, little plant. And I love it. And I'm creating things. I'm throwing seeds in my backyard just to see what happens. And I'm like, and I'm not controlling that because I want to see what the Lord will put out there. I want to see what is, if I just throw stuff to the wind and see what happens, what happens. I love it. I love that part of it. I love the wildness of my gardens. I do. And I said, I eat the food that is there. I don't put anything in my yard. I don't. So I can eat dandelions. I can eat, we have mulberry trees. If you don't know, at the beginning of this year, I had mulberries all over. I would pick a bowl of them and sit here and talk to you while I'm de-stemming mulberries for my family. It's phenomenal. I created a field of dandelions out there. I know, not hard, but I did. It was beautiful. So I got to do that. And then the bees came in and they got fed and then they fed my mulberries. And then, I mean, the circle of that was phenomenal. And I have my little flowers now. It's fall time, so my bees are eating up on my little flowers so they can get bedded down for the winter. These are the last flowers that happen before winter. So they'll be here for a little bit and then everything will go into winter time. And then in the springtime, I will start to see my dandelions will come back. They'll be the first thing that feed the bees in the spring. And then we'll start that garden season. And I will use nature to tell me when I should do things. Because I'm like, I'm not controlling this thing. I'm letting this thing do what it needs to do. And I use in my life, sometimes I control things and sometimes I just kind of throw it into the air and be like, what's going to happen next? YouTube is one of those things. Why? Because January 1st of this year was when I started to really get into YouTube. It's when I really started to look at it and go, you know what? I want to do something with this. I want to try something new. And it was very small and I did one thing and one thing only. And it was Future Vision and Growth Norman Network because it was all about Norman. And all it was economic development and telling you how great my city was. That's what it was. Then I had opinions and I started to critique it a little bit. And then I was like, wait a minute, I have more things to think about. I said, I really like, I think gardening was second. I said, I'm gardening, let me film it. So I created a channel for gardening. Then I'm like, wait a minute, I like business, but I also like self-improvement. So I thought, I started doing self-improvement stuff, and I said, I'll make a channel for that. So I have a business and self-improvement channel. That business channel has taken off in its own way. I started to do little mini series that are like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, like that, where you can go into a business with me and I can film it for you. I've done cheese shops. They're all local businesses. They're small businesses. I've been able to support people that way and I love it. I said, I've been able to showcase all they do. I have a travel channel. Why? Because when we go places, I want to film that too. So I did that. I've got, since my new journey, I got my coffee channel, and Norman is a college town, so we have a lot of coffee shops. And I went to a coffee festival, and I thought, I'm gonna have to learn this thing. And so I decided at that point I was gonna do a coffee channel and did that. And so I do video tours of the coffee shops. Then I go and I do a tasting, and I taste them and tell you what I think of the coffee that's in it. That's fun. And then during spring break, I did a spring break, like a quick little mini channel where they did it for a couple weeks. They could come in, find fun things to do in Norman for spring break. Then it went away. This fall, I changed one of my channels, and it is now the SEC and the visitors channel. Why? Because it's for people that are coming here for SEC football games, but it's also for anybody that visits Norman to find fun things to do. And so I built a network. I built a network that has content regularly every day. Weekends, it's a little bit quieter. It's a good chance for you to go explore the over 1,000 videos that I have put on here. My podcast, I'll have to celebrate this on a shorter video, but I have a major number. I'll tell you guys before anybody else. My Life and Business channel, my Life and Business podcast, has over 100,000 views. So I am very excited about that. I'm excited for these long forms to get more traction. Why? Because you're driving around. You can listen to me talk. I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm not dancing right now. You're not missing anything seeing my face. So you can hear my voice and maybe hear what's going on and learn and become a part of my community so I can go ahead and continue to talk to you. We can grow together. I think that's important. So these are the things that I'm doing now. These are the changes I'm making. And I'll continue to make changes. I'll continue to tell you about them, what works and what doesn't. And there's things that I've done really well and things that are absolute trash and they did not work. But you know what? We keep going forward. And I think that is incredibly important. So hopefully you have gotten something out of this. I hope that you will continue to listen and know that on Thursdays I do long formats. So you can take this one and just pop it in your car and listen to it when you're driving around, or you can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. And I appreciate you and thank you. And of course, always ask you to subscribe to my channel. Why? Because that is the way for you to find all the new content I have coming out. I do little short videos. I do a little bit longer videos. Shorts are my jam. They're about 1 minute long. Why? Because people are bite-sized. But I do have some longer form videos, and I do live events. Tomorrow night, I'll be excited because I get to do a live event. Get ready for that. It's exciting. There's a lot happening in my area. I tell you about what's going on in my city and my region, and you get to be a part of that. So I welcome all of you. Come and join me, and let's just make this thing happen.